Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Stunning text messages revealing a defiant Paul Manafort telling Fox News host Sean Hannity that he'd never, quote, give up information on President Trump or the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. We're just getting a look at these text exchange between Hannity and Manafort after a federal judge on Friday ordered their release. I want to read crucial text from March of 2018. Manafort writes, "They would want me to give up DT," referring to Donald Trump, or family, especially JK, referring to Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law. "I would never do that." Hannity replies, "Understand, there is nothing to give up on DT. What did JK do?" Manafort texts, "Nothing. Just like I did nothing. They will want me to make up bleep on both." Now, Manafort is currently serving federal prison sentence. I want to bring in CNN media analyst Bill Carter, who spent 25 years reporting on media for the New York Times. Bill, what do you make of these Manafort-Hannity text messages?
You know, what's very interesting is Hannity, has been known to be sort of a partisan commentator, but here he's kind of like a propaganda operative here, because he's connecting with someone very much in the mix of the story and like trying to steer him a certain way, like steer him away from doing anything, with the special counsel to go after Trump and things like that. He's extremely involved in it. Now, Fox and any news organization would not really want their journalists to be involved in this, and he distances himself from being a journalist. But still, they've been uncomfortable before when he's on stage with Trump or whatever. This seems another step to me. He's actually involving himself in the story with a witness, trying to get the witness to not, cooperate with the special counsel.
And that is interesting. He also was this week talking almost like directly to the president. He and Tucker Carlson over this whole Iran situation. Let's watch.
Yep, Iran made a very big mistake. They will pay, but in coming days, we will know if the Mullahs are smart enough to take the opportunity, which is a small window. It may not even exist within 5 minutes. Because if they don't, the president will have no choice. He will bomb the hell out of them. No need for a long, protracted, boots-on-the-ground kind of war. We have the greatest military, thank God, on the face of this earth. We have the most advanced weapon systems, and a strong message needs to be sent that a huge price will be paid if you take on the United States of America.
Now something fascinating is happening. The very people, in some cases literally the same people, who lured us into the Iraq quagmire 16 years ago, are demanding a new war, this one with Iran. The president, to his great credit, appears to be skeptical of this, very skeptical.
Bill, are you surprised these two Fox hosts had such opposite opinions here?
Well,
and advice, for that matter.
It doesn't surprise me that Hannity's opinion was so bellicose, obviously. Carlson looks like he's trying to make an actual analytical judgment here that you can't, if you get involved in this thing again, you're going to blow it up. Look what happened to George Bush. By the time George Bush was out of office, his approval rating was like 25%, because the country doesn't want to do this. They don't want to go to war again. And Hannity's basically saying the same thing they've said in Iraq, which is we don't need boots on the ground. We can just use our advanced weapons, which of course is preposterous. It didn't work before. It wouldn't work again. But Carlson's opinion obviously has some sway with Trump. I don't think Trump wants to have that attached to him. He for years decried this other invasion, and I think he would look really foolish if he was to push this too aggressively.
We know how much the president listens to Fox News.
Yes.
He's given most of his interviews on TV to Fox News, and yet now we're seeing him start to kind of open himself up to other news outlets. Last week it was ABC. This week it's NBC, and Chuck Todd, who he's oftentimes bashed, calling him like sleepy eyes.
Sleepy eyes.
What do you make of this?
Well, followed him throughout his presidency. His approval rating hovers around 40 to 42%. That's his base. That's the Fox News audience base. Whatever. He's got to expand that. He can't just do that going into another election. So I think he's trying to reach out in a way and to use the other media. He's a skillful user of media. We know that. He markets himself extremely well, and he tries to control the narrative. So when he's pushed by any of these reporters, he sort of strikes back. But I think he's trying to figure out ways for him to expand what he knows will be a need for him to grow his audience in the next election.
It is Monday, the 24th of June of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. That's right, folks. It's Monday. You go through the weekend and you have some prime choice cuts, and you better dice them up, put them all together, stir them up, fry them up, and you have River City Hash Mondays. Well, what a weekend it was. As far as we know, we are not in war with Iran right now, as far as we know. And if you go to the Q forums, they'll tell you everything is up to question. Everything. So don't go there. It'll only confuse you. That's the kind of world we live in. Well, so we're not going to war. And we are also apparently, Trump held off on his mass roundup of millions of what he calls illegal aliens. Illegal. I just love the whole dehumanizing aspect of it. It seems so common and so common sense that everybody uses it practically, even we do. And I wish that we would not. Illegals. A person is illegal? What BS is that? Yeah, I know. It's been a right-wing trope for a very long time, and it makes sense. It just seems like such common sense. Yeah. Did you not pay your parking ticket? You're an illegal. Okay? With all the ramifications of that word, every single one. Like homeless. Oh, homeless people. It's amazing. I would like to have a brain scan in which we would be able to actually image what people see in their mind's eye when they hear certain words. Because I'm pretty damn certain when a right-winger or someone who has, let's say, right-wing tendencies, what they see in their mind's eye when they hear the word homeless is not someone who's lost their home. They see some loser, maybe of color, or I don't know, maybe, the crazy clown posse people. What? Crazy clown posse? I think that's what they're called. Regardless, the juggalos. The other, something that is just so out of the norm, we have to shun them completely. Why do we do that? Homeless. I see something a little bit different when I hear homeless. It might be a little bit more expansive because I've seen a lot of homeless everywhere in the world, everywhere. And when I see someone who's homeless, I see that they have lost their home in some way. So I don't know. Are we supposed to kick him in the face? Seems like a lot of people wanna. I would rather give a person a leg up than a kick in the face. I know that's controversial in many quarters. I was told that very vociferously this weekend. Illegals. There are no human beings who are illegal. Let's stop it. If they're illegal, it makes it a lot easier to take a toddler, throw it on a concrete floor without a blanket and say, "Go to sleep, you little brat." You're not a human being. You're an illegal. You don't have rights. You broke the law. A misdemeanor. A civil infraction even. Pay the fine. Okay. And let's not forget the other part of this. We're talking asylum seekers. I know that Trump and all the right-wing MAGA hatters have said, it's all just a big scam. That's the way they think because they scam all the time. And they expect everybody to be scamming like they do. They cannot see a world in which benevolence is the primary goal of interaction between one human being and another. It's what am I going to lose by this interaction? Or what do I have to gain? By accident or by guile. Benevolence, that's a weakness. That's a character flaw in their mind's eye. Do we change that? Do we attempt to change that? Do we embrace them as some sort of people worthy of benevolence? I guess so. I can't bring myself to call them illegals, though I suppose they have broken man's law, or shall I say, the law of mankind, humankind. It is not that the strong shall survive. Come on. If you're strong, you got to help everybody survive. Yeah. Because if everybody's surviving, you get to survive too. Truly. And I don't know, maybe then noblesse oblige arises out of that, and we all know what happens with noblesse oblige. It's still paternalistic, and I don't mean to get into there. But I hate this backstabbing. I'm going to crawl over your back to get what's mine, even if it's yours, because what's yours is mine. Stop me. I don't want a world like that. I want someone to stand up and say, no, you cannot do that. If you can't play nice, then I guess we're not going to be nice to you. We have to stop letting them get away with it. I know. Initially, when you stand up, it is really going to cause an uproar. A real uproar. But there's a lot of people out there who don't want to put their heads up until someone else does. And let me say also, when someone else does, you better put your head up and and I got to say, people do. All right, well, so much for that rant. What else is going on here on River City Hash Mondays? Well, at the top, of course, that was CNN media analyst Bill Carter, and he's just stunned to find out that Sean Hannity is a propagandist. As if, well, let's put it this way. In a certain political segment mind's eye, Fox News is not a propaganda outfit situated around the world. Now, I have to say, other governments do recognize that, and they try to keep Sky News at, bay. Try. On the rest of the menu, at least one advertiser is rethinking its relationship with Laura Ingraham following her latest racist comments. Just the latest. United States immigrant detention center conditions are inhumane, according to UN military standards. And 41-year-old Formiga is the last active Brazilian player who was alive when women's football was illegal. Not the women, the football. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Alabama's GOP governor signed a bill that allows a racist megachurch to have its own police force. You're going to believe the way we believe, or we're going to beat the crap out of you, throw you in jail, and then throw away the key. And move over, Freidman Unit. The Trump unit is the new sheriff in town in just about 2 weeks. 2. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, by the way, and we thank Kelly for doing that. To the leftish of the page, from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon site. And if you could, this is all kidding aside now, if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, you know, even the cost of a espresso or latte coffee type drink once a month, that goes a long way, and it has for the last 8 years because of your generosity. We are unable to do this without you, and we have been able to do it because for the last 8 years we have been resisting, as the founders originally intended. It's right there in the Constitution. So we thank you for helping us do our, well, democratic duty. All right. And once again, your generosity can help us continue for another 8 years and beyond. Okay, if you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it's so easy. You can just go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that, and he does it admirably, and we thank him from the bottom of our hearts for doing that. Follow me on Twitter, and I take care of that because who would? Who would? And I also post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. And then, of course, I scramble to get those links out on social media during that, what we call the scramble period. You're scrambling. And if you're old enough to remember Fran Tarkenton, he ran, in a scramble, sort of like in Fear. Erratic. But it worked. Okay? Just saying. I don't like to think that I would scramble like Fran Tarkenton. I like a more controlled scramble, so to speak. This is the West Coast offense way. And if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, you can at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeart, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts can be found, mixed in with every single podcast in the world. Okay, well, I've been struggling with a little bit of an allergy attack this morning. My stuffed nose is coming and going, and I just hope that I don't have a sneezing fit in which I have to mute the button, because I may not mute the button in time. And one doesn't like to have that happen. I know I don't. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, if you haven't heard. If you haven't heard, you'll be reminded a few more times during the broadcast. This comes our way out of Think Progress by Josh Israel. At least one advertiser has said that, that it is rethinking its relationship with Fox News host Laura Ingram's program, The Ingram Angle. Yeah, I like that. After she made racist remarks dismissing reparations for slavery on her podcast. See, podcasts can go a long way. Ingram went on a tirade against the idea of reparations, saying it was unnecessary for the government to do anything to repair the still lingering damage hundreds of years of slavery in the U.S. caused to the black community. Well, I got to tell you, she's not the only one. Oh, my God. I have to confess, there is a bit of racism here in Southern Oregon. You know, Southern Oregon isn't just a matter of geography. It's also a matter of, political alliances with a certain, shall we say, rebel faction that existed in the United States that tried to bring it down. Yes, I actually stated that it is so racist here that if I said that Willie Mays was a better ball player than Ty Cobb, oh, God, my life would be threatened. I wouldn't be just shunned and banned. I think they have something a little bit more severe in mind. One must always take care when you rile people's sensibilities now. Especially when you say that Willie Mays was a better ball player than Ty Cobb. Willie Mays? Ty Cobb? Polar opposites, if you want to ask me. As temperament, worldview. And yeah, Willie was a way better ball player than Ty Cobb. All around and specifically. Back to the article at hand. Her guest at the time, this is being Laura Ingraham, of course, a hate crime hoax author Wilford Riley, warned that if the nation gave reparations to descendants of slaves, Native Americans would also demand compensation. I got to tell you, there's a lot less Native Americans left, proportionally, than how many slaves we brought over. And that was a lot. Over a couple hundred years. Over almost 300 years. That's a lot of human beings. Oh, I know you didn't think they were humans. They were chattel. I know. It's like counting how many steers and cows you brought in, which they did. Right down to the calves. I kid you not. So, if they're not human, they don't count. If we have to pay the slaves and then we have to pay the Native Americans, what are we going to have to do now? Pay for every cow and steer we butchered across the United States? Oh, bison! We'll have to pay the bison first. Hate crime hoax author Wilford Riley said that. Okay, well, this is what we're up against, and it is embedded deep within, I like to say, some reptilian center of some, I don't know, top of the spinal column, not quite in the brain region of a certain political spectrum in the United States today. Danielle McLean, also of Think Progress, brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Did you know that sleep deprivation is banned by the UN and the Canadian military? I got to tell you, those Canadians are really at odds with everything we are about America. How dare they? I mean, the UN I can understand, but Canada? I thought they were our friends. The Trump administration's treatment of migrant children detained at the border, specifically conditions that make it impossible for children to sleep, is considered inhumane under international military law. And that's why I have said repeatedly that when this is all said and done, when Trump and his crew have served their time here, they should and will be shipped to The Hague to face their crimes there. Against humanity. Crimes against humanity. Indeed. A U.S. Department Attorney General argued in federal court on Tuesday that the government does not need to provide migrant children in custody with soap, toothbrushes, or beds to fulfill the safe and sanitary conditions requirement laid out in a consent decree, and that is the Rios Decree. The practice of sleep deprivation is barred when interrogating prisoners of war, according to international military law, of course. We don't follow that little restriction. Are you kidding me? Cruelty is the purpose. Cruelty in achieving whatever ends it is. I think cruelty is the end. It's not the means alone. It is the end. Cruelty is the reason they're doing this. Now, of course, last week we did have the audio of the Ninth Circuit three-judge panel questioning this U.S. government, career attorney, by the way. One doesn't always have to take every case to advance their career. Or stunt it. You never know. You might take on the wrong case, and it might stunt your career. It happens. Well, the Trump administration tries to argue that sleep is not essential for being safe and sanitary. Canadian military law says that it is actually an inhumane and illegal interrogation technique. A Canadian Armed Forces interrogation manual cites international humanitarian laws when outlining interrogation techniques that are considered oppressive. The manual states the use of physical force and active violence to compel a detainee to cooperate is prohibited by law. Come on! If they took away waterboarding, sleep deprivation, and beating the crap out of people and then hanging them up, with their arms behind their backs and lifting them up off the ground, how are we going to get them to tell us what we want to know? How? Now, of course, when these techniques, not hanging the little babies up behind with their arms up behind their backs, okay, but putting them in refrigerators because that's what they're doing. That's why they are called icebox baby gulags. They take the temperature down into, the upper 40s or colder. No blanket, concrete floor, no change of clothes, no showers. And this administration is arguing humane, inhumane. We don't care. Gibbs of Think Progress brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. There is a lot of history on display at the 2019 Women's World Cup in France, but no player represents more of that history, the heroics and the heartbreak, the progress and the barriers than Formiga, Brazil's 41-year-old midfielder. This is her 7th World Cup, which is, one might guess, is a record for men and women. She is a living, breathing symbol of how far women's football has come in the last 4 decades and how far it has left to go. Because when Formiga was born in 1978, it was illegal for women to play football in Brazil. In 1941, the National Sports Council in Brazil drafted Article 54, a decree which said that women in the country will not be allowed to practice sports incompatible with the conditions of their nature. Bake your cookies. You can, maybe do the squats while baking the cookies, lifting the baking sheet out of the oven. There's like the baking sheet deadlift. You can do that. Football? No, that's a man's sport. And the reason, as we see in this reporter's opinion, why women's sports was suppressed for so long is, let's be clear, there is a physical difference between men and women. Men can jump higher, run faster. And I have to say, sometimes that makes for boring football. I always liked the teams that didn't have outstanding stars, but an outstanding team. For instance, and the way they became a formidable team is because some players of average or above average ability are able to play even better because of the other team members around them, and they work as a whole. Technique, discipline, and being well coached can go a long way. And sometimes better than just raw talent left out there just to be raw at the expense of the team. But that's in this reporter's opinion, which every reporter who has sat at the end of a bar and bet a few, yes, would probably say. Now, football, of course, is very important in Brazil and around the world. When I say football, I mean soccer. Because, it's like the metric system. We're not ever going to learn it. Ever. So football in this sense is soccer. So let's not be confused. We're not talking about women banging each other over the head while wearing helmets like the men do. Though women are doing that now. In my lifetime, I've seen all this happen. I remember when women couldn't pole vault. Why? Because apparently they lacked the latissimus dorsi muscle. The side muscles that men have, make them look like, I don't know, cobras when they flex. Apparently women don't have those muscles. That they're not so developed because they go to the mammary. The mammary is a gland, not a muscle. But, coaches used to say this, and that's why women can't pole vault. Give me a break. I don't know. I just laughed at it back in the day because I was thinking, if my sister wants to pole vault, why can't she? I remember when women's basketball, part of the team couldn't go past the half-court line in women's basketball. What? That's not basketball. What was that? I still haven't figured that out. Well, Formiga is a great symbol of this great trajectory in women's sports. Unfortunately, Brazil was defeated, and Formiga did leave the field to rousing applause from the stadium in France. Even though Brazil did lose to France, the French crowd did acknowledge her great contribution to the sport and to women's sport in general. All right, let's get to our break, and when we come back from that break, you know that we're going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Such a Timeless Flight. With two rockstar biopics so close together this year, specifically director Dexter Fletcher and writer Lee Hall's Rocketman following Bohemian Rhapsody, it's hard to resist comparing them. So I won't. Both feature 70s rock stars, both feature 70s English super rock stars, both invite us into their inner lives, taking us from their beginnings to their zeniths, to their self-destructive nadirs, to their emergence from the graves dug by tremendous talent, wealth, pressure, and too little of the right kind of love. Speaking of which, both of those stars were queer and suffered from public and personal worlds that weren't ready to accept them as such. So, after Rhapsody has rocked you and convinced you that you are the champion, why see Rocketman? Well, first, when Rocketman opened with 7 or 8 year old Reginald Dwight outside his house in Pinner, Middlesex, England, in the middle of a full-on neighborhood dance number to The Bitch Is Back, I thought, thank God, someone has decided to do a musical. Rocketman plays off of shows like Mamma Mia and Jersey Boys that are built around a pop singer's canon, except Fletcher and Hall steep Rocketman in broad fantasy moments, allowing for gripping visuals, explicit expressionism, and some really fun sequences. In this way, Rocketman also owes not a little bit to Pink Floyd's The Wall, except Elton John's a real person who burned himself out on booze and drugs and sex. Like The Wall's fictional protagonist, John crumples when he looks for the love that he didn't get from his father's absence and his mother's affection sans acceptance, and only finds opportunistic coupling and fame's fleeting adoration. But most importantly, because of how Rocketman really benefits from its framing device, because it's not afraid to be funny as well as mean, because we meet Mercury when he's already Freddie Mercury, but we meet John when he's just fat, shy little Reg, because Taron Egerton gives a beautifully bombastic yet vulnerable performance, we end up liking Elton and his movie more. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. You hear a lot about how what you eat will affect your microbiome. Probiotics, prebiotics, stuff like that. But your skin is swarming with microbes too, and the grooming products you use might affect what's living there. That's according to a study in the journal BMC Biology. For their tests, researchers recruited 6 men and 6 women. The volunteers left their skin alone for the first 3 weeks, except for a light body wash. And then for the next 3 weeks, the participants applied a modern skincare arsenal: sunscreen and skin lotion, antiperspirant and foot powder. Finally, the volunteers returned to their usual routine, whatever it was for each person, for another 3 weeks. Throughout that time, the scientists swabbed the volunteers' faces in forearms, armpits, and feet. Then they did chemical and genetic analyses of the samples. The lotion and sunscreen did not appear to alter the microbiome, but they found counterintuitively that the antiperspirant and foot powder actually boosted the diversity of microbes in the armpits and in between the toes, perhaps because those products change nutrient and moisture levels, and thus create conditions that foster a wider variety of tiny occupants. The researchers also found that different skincare routines altered the types of hormones and pheromones present on the subject's skin. And they hypothesized that someday personalized skincare recipes could be tailored to individuals to alter our pheromones in a systematic way, thus making us more attractive to others. Or less attractive, should anyone need to lessen their kavorka.
Yes, kavorka.
Kavorka?
It is a Latvian word, which means the lure of the animal.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
More than half of workers age 50 or older will lose their long-time job before they are ready to retire, and almost none of them will ever earn as much again.
I'm Lily Ledbetter, and this is a Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
There is a whole language to cover corporate cover-ups of age discrimination against job applicants. No one tells an applicant, "You're too old." Nope. Now companies say, "You're too experienced," with ads that say, for example, persons with more than 7 years' experience need not apply. And then there's the hiding of available work, a scam where corporations target younger workers and potential employees with use of software and social media that exclude older people, so they never learn that there is a job. And, unfortunately, some courts have ruled that job applicants, unlike current employees, are not covered by the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. If you think that sounds nuts, you're not alone. Many believe that the ADEA covers applicants as fully as it covers current employees. But it probably will require a pro-employee decision of the Supreme Court to make that clear. As Paul Simon said in The Boxer,
asking only workmen's wages, I come looking for a job, but I get no offer.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1880. Chicago labor leader Agnes Nestor was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Her father had been a machinist and a member of the Knights of Labor. Like many other families of the era, the Nestor family moved to Chicago during the Depression that swept the country in the mid-1890s. Agnes went to work at a glove-making factory. At the factory, the women were charged for the power it took to run the sewing machines. They also had to pay for the needles they used. Agnes helped to lead a successful strike against these practices. The strike was supported by the men's union at the plant. Agnes recalled the aims of the strike, saying, "No more machine rent, no paying for needles, free machine oil, union shop, raises for the cutters who were paid the lowest wages." Agnes went on to describe the day-to-day organization of the strike, saying, "We joined the picket line again and held meetings every day and evening in the hall the cutters had rented. How important we felt. Speakers sent to our evening meetings were furnished by the Chicago Federation of Labor Organization Committee. After the strike had lasted more than a week, management sent letters to the employees offering to meet almost all of their demands. However, they refused to recognize the union. The women turned down the proposal, and after 10 days, the women won their demands, including the right for union representation. In 1902, Agnes led the women glove makers on a campaign to form their own union. She also served as the president of the Chicago Women Trade Union League for more than 40 years. Agnes Nestor spent her life fighting for women's right to vote, the 8-hour day, and child labor protections. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labor.
This is a Radio Labor report recorded on Monday, June 24th, 2019. I'm Mark Boulanger. The 100th anniversary conference of the International Labour Organization in Geneva has ended with a number of important achievements for labour. The ILO is the UN agency focused on matters of work in the world. It is operated in a tripartite manner with representatives from governments, employer groups, and labor unions. Guy Ryder, the ILO's Director General, is the first unionist to lead the organization. He spoke to the delegates at the end of the conference on Friday, June 21st.
I think more than has usually been the case, more than has been the case for a long time, we are all very much on this centenary year in the public eye. People are watching, people are listening to us. So, what has the world heard and seen from us in these last 2 weeks in Geneva? Well, firstly, and this has been commented upon already, the fact that no less than 34 heads of state, heads of government have done us the honour of participating in our conference speaks volumes, I think, about the respect in which this organisation is held. Colleagues, with this extraordinary presence of our illustrious guests at this conference, we, the World Parliament of Labour, have turned up in force. We have had 6,300, a few more than that, participants at this conference. We have had 178 of our 187 member states represented here. We've had 162 ministers. All of these are records. We've never done this before. So I think the energy, the self-confidence that we have had is reflected in these numbers. It is evidence of a vibrant organisation, an organisation which enjoys the engagement and the enthusiastic commitment of our members. What have we done? Well, as we saw this morning, amid scenes of justifiable enthusiasm, the adoption of very important convention and recommendation on a very important issue, the abuse that violence and harassment at work represents. The convention we adopted this morning is the first one we've adopted since 2011. And I think it is important that the ILO standard-setting function is maintained and that we demonstrate at this centenary conference that we are ready, able and willing to proceed with that process. Ladies and gentlemen, the declaration on the future of work that has been adopted has been the subject of a number of comments. I think we have a very powerful declaration which can take us forward, because our work on the future of work does not finish with this historic conference. What we have adopted today is, as has been said, a roadmap, a compass to take us forward in the future of this organisation, because the future of work is the future of our organisation. And I've learned in the negotiation of this declaration that what for one person is vision and ambition and necessary is for another person unrealistic, utopian and out of reach. That's the nature of social dialogue, and that's the reason we have the declaration that we have. But we will go forward on the basis of what is in the declaration, on the basis of the resolution which accompanies it. And as we move forward, one lesson of this conference, I think, and frankly every other conference we have had, must be borne in mind. That the progress that we achieve, what we accomplish, and sometimes what we fail to accomplish, is entirely dependent upon our capacity to engage constructively in social dialogue, to listen as well as to talk, to weigh in the balance of views of others with our own views, and to be faithful to the social contract of tripartism for social justice.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. The U.S. threatened to cap the number of skilled Indian workers granted special H-1B visas this week, opening a new front in the Trump administration's effort to overhaul U.S. immigration policy. The H-1B program lets American firms hire foreign workers for skilled jobs in science and technology, and while it's capped at 85,000 new visas a year, the program is so popular it often swells to encompass more than 400,000 guest workers. Nigel Corey is the Associate Director for Trade Policy at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation.
The data's shown that they aren't taking other jobs or undercutting U.S. salaries or anything like that.
So why disrupt such a popular program? The U.S. is angry with India's recent embrace of data localization policies, which force American companies to build data centers in the countries where their users are based. Champions of the policies say it spreads the wealth of the digital economy, but tech firms are balking at having to set up new data centers around the world. So, to punish India for localizing its data, the U.S. is threatening to allot no more than 15% of H-1B visas to Indians, a big drop from the present 70%.
Anything that makes the U.S. harder, more expensive place to work for skilled foreign professionals obviously puts it at a disadvantage to others who are keenly watching to see how they could capitalize on changes in the U.S. system.
While the U.S. hopes its visa threat persuades India to scrap data localization, Sarah Pierce, an analyst at the Migration Policy Institute, thinks reforming the H-1B program is a better idea.
Other countries have seen how outdated our program is and kind of taken advantage of that. For example, Canada recently opened up a program where you can bring in a skilled worker as fast as 2 weeks, light years faster than you can bring in a worker on the H-1B program.
Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Ash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit, slated for a high of 82 to 84. Partly cloudy conditions, though we are sunny currently, with winds out of the southeast, a negligible 1 to 2 miles per hour, affectionately known as light and variable. Picking up later on out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Shifting again out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour tonight. And tomorrow, winds will be out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour with a high of around 78 to 80. Wow, okay, and then overnight lows will be in the upper 50s to low 60s in the next couple of nights, and maybe we might have some rain on Thursday. Maybe. Too far out? Maybe. Barometric pressure is rising at 29.81 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 55%. Oh, I didn't mention that the grass pollen is very high. The air quality index is in the good range at 15 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is very high at 9. So take care if you're local or if you're experiencing any of those high UV index ratings. Take care. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 75 and partly cloudy. Paris is 88 and sunny with a heat advisory. Yeah, it's pretty hot there. Rome is 90 and sunny with no heat advisory. Go figure. Guess they have plenty of gelato at the Spanish Steps. They better. Kiev is 86 and fair. Kabul is 78 and fair. Hong Kong is 79 degrees with a rain shower. Tokyo is 68 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 degrees with a rain shower. San Francisco, California is 59 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 81 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Desai Martin of Share Blue Media brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Briarwood Presbyterian Church, which has a long history of racism and homophobia, will now be allowed to have its own police force, thanks to a bill Alabama Republican Governor Kay Ivey signed into law last week. The church, which serves 8,000 people a day, that's a lot of tithing in the basket, can already hire off-duty police officers to assist with security, but that wasn't enough. The new law allows for a full-fledged police force that will report to church authorities and be fully empowered to make arrests if crimes are committed on church property. Sounds like an incentive to buy up all the property around them until someone tells them to stop, or they can't keep buying. Make the whole town part of your property. And those people no longer have U.S. constitutional guarantees, but whatever your Christofascism desires. Wow. As the bill was being debated in the Alabama legislature, the Alabama chapter of the ACLU expressed grave concerns about it, and why wouldn't they? It is a problem because it violates the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Randall Marshall, executive director of the Alabama ACLU, said, "It establishes a singular religion that is favored above all others in the state of Alabama, and it gives them the authority of state government." Yeah, what happens when a Methodist says, "I don't like the cut of your jib, Presbyterian man. I'm going to have my police force take on your police force, and we're going to see who can dance and who won't be allowed to." The church does not allow women to serve in leadership roles such as deacons or bishops. In addition, the church broke away from mainstream Presbyterian churches in the 70s over the issue of allowing black and white parishioners to worship together. Wow. Briarwood oppose the integration, and their pastor, Harry Reeder, has close ties to pro-Confederate groups because it's the American way. At the same time, Alabama is expanding the ability of sexist, racist churches to have police forces. The state is hard at work restricting the rights of women across the state because everybody knows from time immemorial that women are witches. Everybody knows that if you let them have their way, oh my God, can you imagine what the world would be? Yeah, I imagine it a lot. I wish it would come true.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Nicole Bell of Crooks and Liars brings us this final amuse-bouche here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I'm old enough to remember when columnist Tom Freidman promised over and over and over and over again that our occupation of Iraq would turn a critical corner in 6 months. He did it so much that the blogosphere just coined the term the Freidman Unit for that mythical 6-month period that would change things for the better. Then there came Big Talk and Anthony Scaramucci, who lasted an astounding 10 days. As the White House Director of Communications, even in a White House with an unprecedented turnover of employees, his tenure was remarkably short, although not short enough to disqualify him from being booked on cable news shows. Even the mainstream media started talking about Trump staff tenures in terms of how many Scaramuccis or mooches they lasted. Now, we have a new unit of time for Beltway denizens, the Trump Unit. What is the Trump Unit? It's 2 weeks away. Trump's taxes will be released in 2 weeks. A new health plan in 2 weeks. Economic program, 2 weeks. Authorizing an attack on Iran in 2 weeks if they don't agree to negotiations. ICE and Customs Border Patrol sweep up of immigrants in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You know, pretty soon it's going to be 2 weeks and it's going to be the 4th of July. You know that day. Yeah, honor hair for your day. Okay, it brings us to the end of our broadcast period for this day, but you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. We're going to meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pas fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, avoir un latte coeur. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.